Frida, and I work as a project manager here. I'm sorry I don't have a microphone today, but we have so many guests, so we have to give them to our guests instead. This seminar that you will take part of is called Widen Your Vision, Clarify Your Brand, and it's part of Learn, Create, Engage, which is a project where we try to develop competence for people within the culture and creative businesses. So we do lots of courses and educations, workshops and seminars, and if you'd like to know more about it, you can see it on our website. And again, welcome here. I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, but please give them a really warm applause.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you, Frida. My name is Pernilla Glaser, and I'm so happy to see you. And I want to instruct my guests that let's move when we speak, because that's what you asked for, right? Yeah, so everyone can see us while we do this. And without falling off the stage. My position in life is in between learning and making. And I had a crush on media evolution ever since I spoke at the conference in 2023. I work with supporting and facilitating organizations and individuals how to work creatively together and how to stay in messy situations without having to hurry to do something else. And I'm so proud that we are having this conversation. And the guests that we have, thank you so much for organizing this with us, Media Evolution. So on my left side here, we have Marc-Christoph Wagner, and you are the founding editor of Louisiana Channel. And Louisiana Channel, anyone here who is not familiar with Louisiana Channel, but it's an independent digital platform with massive content. You can find amazing writers and artists speaking about both their art, but also life and society. So it's an educational platform, it's an artistic platform, and it's not without importance that it's independent, because it's not there to, in any instrumental way, attract audience to the Louisiana Art Museum, even though it's, of course, affiliated and positioned there. And we can come back to why that is important and how that have sort of determined the growth of that channel since it was founded in 2012. So very, very welcome to you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Follow that impulse. Linda Holster, so fantastic to have you here. You are a curator and facilitator. Yeah, I know curator is a tricky word because you think that it might be hanging up, deciding where the art should be. That's not what you do. But you do curate processes and spaces for people and how to support an institution to explore other ways of doing and making and thinking. And you work with Malmö Art Museum and investigating how can we bring together audiences in new ways? And that is something we will explore. What are the conditions for that? How do you set that up? What kind of feedback comes back into the institution? And that's a process that's very much going into a new phase right now, because it's been like a pop-up tryout space called My New Museum in Malmö. And now it's moving into the old casino building and making something more semi-permanent. And it's exciting to hear about how you think around that. So now you can do that again. Thank you for being here. And lastly, but absolutely not least, Jane Wentworth, welcome back. You were here yesterday, giving a lecture workshop that some of you in the audience attended. Together with me in that space, and we called it Disrupt for Success. And you are, in a sense, a professional disruptor. you founded Jane Wentworth Associates in order to support artistic institutions, but also other venues, to understand how they can work with their brand, what kind of processes that entails, and how to be bolder in their ways, both of working and thinking.
Yeah.
And you worked with especially about boldness. How do we stick to the boldness in difficult times? And I want to also remind my guests that we're not here to really give the final answer to anything. So if you feel like you're now supposed to explain to all these people how it's supposed to be done, you can stop feeling that.
Good.
We're here to have a conversation and reflection, and this room is full of so many amazing professionals, aside from us. So I also hope you all stay and have an extra beer and talk to both us and each other afterwards. That's equally important. I want to start with the only question I did prepare you for properly, which is how do you take care of your own curiosity? So before we go into all the nitty-gritties of organizations and processes and all of that, let's start with ourselves and how do you work with yourself to do that? And I thought I'd start with you, Jane.
Thank you. Well, I think the question's in two parts, if I remember rightly. It's partly about what you do in your own practice, but it's also partly to do with your own self and this sense of trying to be curious. The older you get, and I certainly know about getting old, the harder it is to be curious in some ways, because you kind of so much becomes second nature that you just kind of go, oh yeah, it's one of those, I'll do that again. Nothing really surprises you. But I think if you just talk to a stranger at least twice a day, that keeps your curiosity going. Doesn't really matter who they are. It could be the postman, or it could be a taxi driver, or a child outside your house. So I think you find something new, you're usually surprised by their answers. And I'm not naturally a very convivial person, so it's quite an effort for me to talk to people, believe it or not. And the other thing is, if in my so-called practice, although that's not a word I would use really.
What would you use?
Work.
Would you
Work.
Yeah. That's okay. You can use work.
Yeah, thanks. In my work, I think what I try and do is, again, it's about talking to people and being nosy. You know, if I get, every time I have a new client, the first thing I do is go into the toilets, have a look at them, see if they smell nice or not, you know, whether they're clean. Because you learn so much about an organization from things like that. You know, who cares about the logo over the door? Do they care? Do they look after their people? And so even if I'm not doing something with a client, just in an everyday way, I go into a shop, go to the supermarket, and when I'm waiting at the checkout, I say, do you like working here? Are you on your last shift? Do you work every day of the week? Do you want to stay in retail?
You kind of lift up the ropes to see what is actually going on here.
Exactly. And I find that's never disappointing, really. It's great.
You're like an all-the-time anthropologist that ceaselessly investigates.
Yeah, it makes it sound very grand, yes, but...
Yes, but, you know, own it.
I'm just what the English call a nosy Parker.
Yeah, we can argue about that later. So, Linda, what is your curiosity practice?
It's quite tough to be after you now, because
there's
my
plenty of room.
answer was to just keep asking questions and talk to new people. And the curiosity, I think, comes also to actually listen to the answer, to pay attention what people around you want to share and want to give you. So very similar, but I think that's how my curiosity also keeps nourished. And also to see new places to go travel is a weird word to say now, but it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
a long
move
travel.
around. Yeah.
Move around the city, move around the neighborhoods or countries.
Mm.
So people and new places, I would say.
And the practice of listening, as I understand you,
Yeah.
to sort of listen without rolling up all the potential answers in your own mind, but actually staying with what is being said. Is that, do you feel that that is something you can sort of train, that you do it and then you sort of expand that, or how is that? How do you?
Yeah, maybe you
How
can
does that
train
work?
it. I think sometimes it also is about being in the present.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to train that sometime, every once in a while, when things move fast. And
Pull ourselves into that.
yeah, so maybe I don't think you can train curiosity, I think, but to be in the presence and listen to people,
Yeah.
I think that is
So
super
it's
important.
more, so in a sense, it's also give yourself space
Mm-hmm.
to be there, to be in the presence. And yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And what about you? What's your curiosity practice? If you give us an example.
I think I'm like anybody in this room. We all have a certain curiosity, and I'm really trying to protect it.
Yeah.
So even though Louisiana Channel is a digital project, I kind of try to protect my curiosity in the analog space. I'm trying to kind of build fortresses around kind of periods of the day or the week where I don't write emails, don't kind of are not on the internet, but kind of protect this space where you actually, where the curiosity can come through. Like you said, paying attention. I mean, our attention is challenged all the time because we can always write another email or answer another
The list
email
is
or see
endless.
another film, or so those analog times during the day. For example, I live in Copenhagen. I take the train to Humlebæk. Sometimes I have to work because we
There's
work
an
in
email to
we
answer.
work we work in when I wake up. We work kind of globally, so I might have gotten an email from Los Angeles, which I have to answer, because then I can answer it before the artist or the gallery goes to bed. So sometimes I have to work, but very often I try to just look out, and then kind of the curiosity which we all have comes through. So
you
that's
leave yourself alone in a sense.
yes. So that's one part of the answer, and the other part is exactly like you said, through people. I've just been in New York, and when we travel to places like New York or London, we always try to kind of arrange a couple of interviews within 3 or 4 days. And very often it's a mixture between known artists or established names, but I always try to find a name that is new, and you don't really know if it's worthwhile the effort.
What is this?
But more than often, you return back to Copenhagen and think it's the young artist, the no-name, that has been the most the interesting experience. And then you get bombarded and inspired by their energy. So it's protecting my analog space. I'm not on social media at all. And it's kind of trying to meet people that can kind of infect me with their energy.
And also trusting your gut. And I think that's connected to what I will soon ask you about boldness.
Yes.
That also trust that sort of maybe first instinct that, okay, let's just do this and see where it goes. Can we just do a quick survey in the room, a raise of hands? How many of you here are students, if there are any? Up with a hand.
We all are.
Yeah, but no philosophical angle to that. Thanks. And how many of you work in any kind of creative industry? Raise of hands, please.
Wow.
Oh, yes. How many of you are sort of working with a digital platform, mostly? That's also a lot of people. Very fun. How many of you are actively working with brand development somehow? Yes. Oh, my goodness. Can we really have to make this a several day thing? Okay, next time. So I want to ask you. I'm on my way to you, Linda, to ask about how we need to take care of the spaces where we are to meet with new people in the professional development of the museum. But I thought I will stay with you a little bit and ask about when you started Louisiana Channel. It was in a sense a different world, even though it was not that long ago. What were sort of the sort of founding principles for that venture, and how did you sort of set that up so you could be independent and still make something that was highly qualitative?
It's very nice of you to call me the founder, but it's the founding editor. So the idea was born by the museum and the director of the museum, and they knew a lot about art, and at some point of time before it kind of got released, I knew something about production, and I've been a journalist and a correspondent for a German national like SVT in Northern Europe, so they asked me to help them for 3 months.
Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are, 13 years later. And it's interesting because I just reread the founding kind of idea or principles of the Louisiana Channel a couple of weeks ago. And the interesting thing is, it's still, you shouldn't change anything 13 years later. It was thought very well, because the idea was, you know, I have to say a few sentences about the Louisiana Museum, because do you know the Louisiana Museum? Yes. It was founded in the late 50s, 1958, I think, and it was founded on this principle that art and culture matter for society, and both society inspires culture and culture inspires society. This is because, and this is when you walk through the Louisiana Museum, you see all those windows and no borders, and this was kind of to underline the thought that what we do in here matters to the outside world, and the outside world inspires what is happening in here. So this is kind of the architecture is representative of that. So the thought behind Louisiana Channel was, when you today visit any museum in the world, you will find out it's typically an audience plus 50, and it's typical a female audience. So at the time, the museum's director thought, okay, if the kind of the belief of the museum still holds true, if what we do in art institutions or culture institutions matters for society, how can we communicate this idea to a younger generation that don't necessarily go to the museum? So that was the thought behind Louisiana Channel, not to build a platform that's a marketing instrument for the museum.
But that sort of honored the same principles.
Honors the same principles. That is not about news, or it's not about the latest fashion, but it's kind of, in Danish we say væsentlighed, so something that is kind of, that matters. And then meet
sense of urgency there as well.
Sense of urgency, and meet the audience where it is, namely at their screens. And to do public service content, but distributed via social media. And the second or third or fourth or fifth idea was to do it in English, because then you have a global audience.
So it was instantly sort of thought to be something that could have that endless outreach.
Yes, and the independence comes in that we are of course based at the museum. We are funded by funds that is kind of through the museum, but we're independent as a group of the museum because we don't do films for exhibitions, or we don't
for example, step in and sort of do the work.
We wanted Louisiana Channel to be identified as an independent platform, because that raises the trustworthiness of the product. If you see, just a short note, if, for example, let's say the Danish publisher Gyldendal, they do interviews with artists, like we do interview with artists. But when you see an interview with an artist on the publisher's homepage, you always think this is marketing.
Yeah, of course. So you need another system.
You need another system. And by not focusing on the museum for 13 years, we have actually established in what you call independent platform, but we have also raised the trustworthiness of what we do. And this indirectly pays back to the museum, because it has raised the resume
Yeah.
of the museum within the art world, because if you look at Tate or Malmö Channel, they document a lot of things of what
Yeah.
is going on inside the museum. So that becomes semi-marketing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
I want to stop you
There was a
there.
long
I
answer
want to stop
for...
you there.
Yes.
Don't worry, I will interrupt you.
Yes,
when
very
I want
good.
to.
I have the feeling,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very clear. So that's one kind of space. And you are working with physical spaces a lot, mainly, where we are to come together and understand something and something different about how art is being viewed and experienced. What are your sort of entrance points? For example, now, when you are going to step into a new space and do this, what is it that what are sort of the founding principles that you carry with your, or sort of conditions?
To trust the process is the short answer. I came to Malmö Art Museum 2 years ago. How many of you have been to Malmö Art Museum?
Everyone.
So many. How many
They
of you?
did prepare.
Yeah, maybe. How many of you have been to Anslagets Konst, which is the brilliant exhibitions that is on right now? Yep. It is an amazing museum. I think it's a hidden gem in our city. The collection is truly a high-end collection that is having a lot of perspectives, a lot of historical thoughts, but also contemporary. It's so worth to be shared in new ways, and that's how my start began at the museum, because I was assigned to make a project that took the museum out of the castle where it is today, which is quite problematic, and the museum is in a what do you call it? A transition, I would say, from this castle into something new.
So it's also this other space that is needed.
Yeah, so to begin with, when I came, we made a project called My New Museum, took it out in the city and started to ask questions. It is My New Museum with the question mark. That was the whole idea, and the whole concept was about asking questions. So we took a temporary space in the middle of the city. We did not bring any art, but we brought a lot of collaborations. And I think to make a space is a collective engagement.
Yeah.
And we try to change the narrative of being like we want to teach you into come and talk to us, learn, create new knowledge through art.
So the space becomes who you invite
Of
to
course.
co-create it.
Yeah.
And when you do that invitation, what is it that you put first, so to speak? What drives you into who you are asking to?
Well,
come
obviously
in?
we have a lot of target groups since we're run by the city of Malmö. So we always have those goals. But with My New Museum, I started off with a city development model called Quadruple Helix, which is the government, the civil society, academia, and the business area. Those four always kind of works together on how to kind of nourish each other. But when we worked at Södergatan, also with some artists to develop new methods, we came up to add also artist and artist practice into this model. So we did like a museum model where it's equal in between. So when everything we did, and since I'm not a curator, just facilitated space for art and the curators at the museum. Yeah, but it's
another thing.
Yeah, especially at the museum, the brilliant curators, and I'm not one of them, unfortunately. But I'm trying to make a space for them to also work with the arts in new ways, to actually not view art or come to and see a collective, actually use it and be relevant in new ways and get new perspective on the society we're in. So I think making a space is really important, how you make people meet, actually physically.
Yeah.
And I always work out of these 5.
Yeah. Very
And
clear.
all of them need to be represented. And of course then we have kids and we have, all those normal target groups. But I also think you can work with those 5 within those groups.
Yeah.
So that's
Beautiful.
kind of my method to make a space and understand new things.
Yeah, very clear. And I have so many follow-up questions that I'm not going to ask exactly right now, but I'll come back.
I'm here.
You stay there. Jane, I knew I said I was going to ask you about boldness, but I have to ask you another question first.
Okay.
And it's the question about target groups.
No.
It's unescapable question, and sort of the balance between. So, you had the mission of sort of broadening. Where are the others that also should be? And you are working with also this sort of expanding. You always work with target groups when you work with organizations, or how they define it, how they see it. I mean, what is it that you notice that is of importance, and what has changed? You think, when it comes to how one sees a target group? And it's not a trick question. What I mean by that is that it can be difficult when it's fluent, or you want to accommodate many, or people are not defined by their age, but the different things. And I mean, how do you think?
It is a
around
very
that?
difficult question, actually, because the people who are running the museums indirectly, because they're usually local or national government, have their sort of social strategies, and that, to be very broad brush about it, is usually get everybody, don't be elitist. Got to make it popular for all kinds of people. Everybody's got to be there, kids, grannies, visitors. And so when you're talking to the people within the museum, people like you who are sort of implementing the strategy, of course they're much smarter and much more sensitive to what really is happening. But they still sometimes answer when you say, okay, well, here you are, you've got this fantastic museum or opera company or orchestra or whatever it might be, and what you do, your core content, is usually pretty special. It's not a mishmash of all sorts of things. It's something like it's surrealism, or it's Beaux-Arts, or it's contemporary art from America or whatever, or it may be contemporary music or Baroque music. So I think you say to the people, well, who are your audience? And they kind of go, everybody. And you go, no, wrong, that's not the right answer. Who's the audience that you want to absolutely passionately fall in love with you? It's like saying, who's your boyfriend? Everybody. There's one boy who you really want, so you put your
maybe
effort.
Two, but
maybe,
but not everyone.
you only admit to one of them, maybe. But you do everything you possibly can to be as attractive and to be as sympathetic, empathetic, good fun, playful, gorgeous, jealousy-making as you possibly can be, so that audience falls in love with you. And then you can start the luxury of saying, bring a friend, bring your children, make it easier for you to do something at the weekend with people who aren't the target audience. And it's like pebble in the pond thing, it just goes out further. But you must be focusing on the people who really, really want what you do. Otherwise, it's, to use another rather cheesy metaphor, it's like, and you were talking about boldness. You've got a palette of colours, and you're making a painting, say. If you mix them all together, you get a sort of shitty brown. Whereas if you're bold enough, bold enough to say, actually, I'm going to make this painting, and it's just going to be with red and black, and then we'll see what happens.
That's perfect, because now we can keep talking about boldness.
Okay.
Because this sort of choice that you ask of the organization, then choose, make an informed choice of who you want. is also sort of shifting away from saying, let's make it as accessible as possible, maybe sort of going into the negatives and moving over to the positives. This is what we have. And how do you sort of honor that, the boldness, or work with the boldness of taking your idea, your particularity, to its sort of consequence, utter consequence, and not be scared and stop midway? Or
I don't know if this is a sensible answer or not, but I don't really care. I think the point is that you've got this thing which you're putting a lot of effort and knowledge and passion into, but you can't just say, well, actually the only people we really care about are sort of 65-year-old women who like Schoenberg, because that's kind of small audience.
Yeah.
But what you can do is put it on a kind of revolving plinth, so that you can help people look at it from all sorts of different points of view.
Oh, just keep talking.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Say more things.
Well, I'm just trying. It's not really very well worked out, Pernilla, I have to admit. You'd be surprised to hear that,
but
won't you?
You are following, right? Yeah.
I think it's looking at the thing. I know very little about archaeology, but I do think what we do in developing brands for organizations is a bit like archaeology, because somebody says, there's a site over there, we think there's stuff under the earth, Roman villa or something, and then a load of people go down there with their little brushes and their little tools, and suddenly, eureka, they've found the thing.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's what I'm trying to do. You're going into an organization, you're lifting stones, you're opening cupboards, you're whispering to people, what's it really like here? And it starts to come to the surface, and you have a sense of what it is that's really special about the organization. And when you find that, it may not be a collection, it might be a way of showing work, or it might be the kind of people that you employ to interpret that work. And then you sort of build that into the offer, so that it can be very flexible. It could be great for babies and toddlers on a Saturday morning. It could also be great for very serious musicologists on a Thursday evening.
So that's how I hear you, is that when we understand and can gather ourselves around that boldness, then we can also be flexible. Then we can also be open. One is sort of a condition for the other.
Yes, it's called having your cake and eating it, of course. That's all our goal, really, isn't it?
I have some questions for you, Linda, and I'm on my way to you. Just so you know,
I'm patient.
You are very patient, and just to give you a warning, I want to ask you about sort of what happens when we are working in formats that sort of take over the curation for us, like when we are on a platform that curates our content for us, and how do we sort of do that? So that's where we're going, but I want to stay with this flexibility a little bit, and how that applies in your practice, Linda. So the boldness and the flexibility, trying something, unearthing something, and then playing with it as you do in your space. What is it that what would you experience when you work with this dynamic of different people or different fields? What is needed for them to come together and innovate in that space, in the facilitation? From your experience, what do they need or do in that?
I think we need time, and I think we need to be bold, and I think we need brilliant communication, and I think also we need to be patient, because sometimes it's quite hard in the beginning to develop those projects that are not really, this is the goal. I mean, if you're going to be in the process and stay there and keep asking questions without, it was never my point to, after a year, be able to give all the answers, because it's just going deeper and deeper for every single day. But I think that was quite hard to convince people around me in maybe in the city or people I work with, or to also understand that we're on this journey and we're not going to be done in May, or we're not going to be done when we open our doors, or we're not going. This is when we start, but to be brave enough to stay, I think takes.
And the PowerPoint is not the result of this process.
Nej.
You have to switch to Swedish.
Yeah.
That's how much you mean it.
No, but I think still to also to keep having those meetings and build collectively. I think that is not the PowerPoint way in this case, because now I think we also have a new space that we're opening up, and that is kind of the PowerPoint. To be in this space and understand what's going to be.
The result is the next process.
Yeah, and also to connect with students from the universities or schools, and connect with artists that are going to work there. The informal meetings, companies that want to be there, also financing, because that's also something we need. We need money, time and money to actually develop. But one thing I would say is super important that I learned, and that is to communicate the knowledge along the way. We did it in the most simple way through to create like a redaktion. What's that in?
Yeah, like an editorial board.
Yeah.
You could take care of the outcomes.
Yeah, to create letters that we sent continuously, and just wrote down what we learned, what the artists who came and worked with us came up with, how meetings came from different directions. But then also when you look at those letters, they're also kind of an archive to look back on. And that is maybe the PowerPoint that people want. Okay, what was the goal? What was the outcome? How many people were there?
Here's
all those things.
Look here.
And I'm like, okay, we're at the casino in Kungsparken now, trying to understand how that could be a new space for people to meet and use and learn new things.
It's a very fluid process, isn't it? I mean, it has to be a sort of dissolving and reforming and dissolving.
And sometimes that's a disruption. I mean, if you want to understand a future cultural institution, fluidity is not super easy all the time.
It's not their favorite word, for sure.
No, I'm not even sure it exists, fluidity. But
it's also what you're also pointing to is that don't wait for another time to sort of collect and blah blah blah. Just do
act
this.
now and work with the neighborhood, and talk to the guy who serves the falafel, who knows the place. Come in, we come out to your place. Meet.
Be there.
To act now and open before you're done. Start to open the door and then work. Not clean and do all the perfect things.
We don't
and
do perfection.
Open. No, because there is no perfection in this house.
No.
Except the artists and the processes that they work with.
So I want to go to another imperfection, which is this.
Which is me?
Which is which is sort of so in a sense we're also talking about levels of freedom here. So that freedom to how do we make freedom for different processes, and we spoke a little bit when we prepared this talk about what do you do in a situation when you are taking care of a digital platform and you want it to be vibrant and meaningful and inclusive, and then suddenly you're in the hands of sort of
the algorithm.
Yes, exactly. What are your thoughts around that, and how do you sort of work with that?
Okay, Pernilla, that's a really big question.
Yeah, the lecture.
No,
I know, but it's important. I think most of us are affected by it somehow.
Yeah, you can say that from the start in 2012, when we established Louisiana Channel, we had a very special distribution strategy because, it starts with the name. Louisiana Channel is a really stupid name because everybody that does not live around Humlebæk in Denmark, they think of Louisiana as the state. And building a global platform with the name Louisiana Channel, that's a really stupid idea. Anyhow, so we started very stupid. But the distribution strategy was quite well thought, and this was not me, this was my colleague Peter who invented it. we never did anything to promote the platform. So every time we published a video, and we're publishing videos on architecture, on art, and on literature, and already that is a stupid thing to do, because if you have a platform today, you want it to be as streamlined as possible. So people who are interested in literature are not necessarily interested in architecture. So we confuse them in a way.
Yeah.
So
You have to
but we
go look for things.
we started out with distributing our videos to an audience that we knew were interested in architecture, if there was an architecture video. And because they were interested, they started sharing the video with each other.
Yeah.
And then we kind of made cooperations with architectural platforms, and and that's the funny thing. You always hear that on social media you should be short. Today they always say, no, if you can engage an audience, make it long, because those algorithms, they want you to stay on the platform.
Yeah.
So I visited the British Museum in London, and they do, of course, very different things from us, but that's interesting. If they have a video of 20 minutes talking to your curator, then they have a club, a members club. And the members, they are so interested, they cannot get enough. They want the 20 minutes video to be 45 minutes with this boring curator talking about this very little thing. So there is there's an interest, and we always say we are a niche, but because the niche is global, it's big enough. So this was the distribution strategy from the beginning, but now we have published 2 videos a week for almost 13 years. So now there is 1,300 videos on the platform. On the platform. And now we're starting thinking, okay, maybe we should not only think about every single video, but maybe we should think about Louisiana Channel as an archive. So now actually we think that the people should come to our platform. And this is kind of the state we're in right now. Your question was,
how do you work with an archive? That's sort of your question.
Yes,
where you stand.
and and we know very much about how those social media they function, and we also know every time we have an artist talking about political content or nudity or something, then the algorithm keeps the kind of the spreading down. We can see it's kind of so the algorithm becomes the censor of what we do. And then there's 2 things of reacting. You can either kind of accept that there is somebody censoring. We don't. We don't care if we think we should show nudity, or we should show an artist talking about political stuff. Then we must accept that we are kind of published on the platform, and maybe it's not spread, but we still think it's worthwhile publishing it.
And you're sort of building the archive idea also, because that's an independent, another layer of independence.
So we're quite stubborn, actually.
You're very stubborn.
I'm especially stubborn, Yes.
Thank you. Jane, so this clarifying your vision, that's in the title of this talk. I said when I introduced you that you work similarly, or if not identically, in many ways when you meet very small organizations.
Yes.
At least initially, when you work with very large organizations. And when you are coming in, the ask can look different, but when you are invited to come and help us to understand where we should go from here, what are sort of the initial elements that you think are most vital in that first dialogue around where are we going, how should we take care of our brand going forward?
Well, people don't usually ask me to help them unless they're in trouble. I'm like a doctor, really. You don't go and see the doctor if you feel on top of the world. And so people come to me and say, I've got this problem. And that's the starting point, usually. So solving the problem, which might be we're about to merge with another museum, we're about to lose our funding, we want to be a global brand, not separated out all over the world. So you try and find out what's not working, and then you also try and find out what is working, and you do a kind of map as if you were going on a picnic to say, well, let's have a picnic over there on the other side of the city and in some fields. But you have to give people a map to know where it is. You can't just expect everyone to know. And you have to tell them what to bring to the picnic. And you have to tell them why it's a good idea. And so that the vision is really, and I nearly always do this in workshops where you get a lot of people together. I should also say that one of the absolute tenets of the way I work is that I think you have to start from the inside of the organization. It's no good imposing an idea from outside, whether it's a campaign or an advertising series, or even, you know, somebody coming along almost like a sort of fashion stylist saying, I see you all in pink, you know.
Yeah. Or as you, if I might just you do a little side note, or as you also have pointed out in conversations with me, that sort of the executives go away for 2 days and just lay out everything and come back and inform them. That's also
often happens, you know. Oh, we've got a strategy, we don't need you to do it. You go, oh, really? How did you arrive at that? Well, you know, our board of governors told us we had to get a strategy, so we just went away with a leadership team for a weekend and we came back with a strategy. And how's it going? Oh, not very well. Nobody knows what it is or why it works or what to do with it. So we went back to square one and we started building it from inside up.
And that's where the doctor comes in.
Yes, and that's where you give people the opportunity to have a really good moan about what isn't working. And then you say, enough. Now you've got to think about the future and what would good look like? What would great look like? What's it like today on a scale of 10? And people kind of go, 6 out of 10, 3 out of 10. Well, what would 10 out of 10 look like? Yeah. And that's what the workshops are really about, is trying to start a narrative. And the way I usually do it is to sort of throw down 2 or 3 alternative scenarios that are built on stuff that I already know. And then you give them to the groups in the room and you say, well, what if you were this? What if you went, I don't know, it could be anything, it doesn't really matter. But the important thing is that the scenarios need to be very different. They need to be credible in that you're not asking the British Museum to be a punk fashion house, but you are saying, you know, what if you were really a kind of customs house for the world's treasures? That would be one positioning. Another positioning might be that you're just, you know, England's home or Britain's home for the world to come and see their own objects which we've stolen over the years. So anyway, you do the different scenarios and you give people the opportunity to critique them. Which they love doing, and this is rubbish, we'd never want to be that, or we like a bit of this or a bit of that, or actually we'd really like to be this. And you go, okay, if you really want to be this, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard would that be? And sometimes they unrealistically say, about 8, and you go, oh, I don't think so. But then at least you've got something to work with, because you can see we do exercises where we say, well, what have we got to build on? This good stuff. Let's put all the good stuff over here and build that into a nice tower.
But in a sense, then you're kind of having a double. You do a double deliverance, because you are supporting them to find their brand or to cultivate their brand. But you're also supporting them to foster a brand culture.
Yes.
Which is sort of working with it. Keep what Linda talked about, keep working with it.
I think, sorry, can I just want to clarify that, because I think it's not making a brand culture, I think it's making the brand out of the culture.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's process that keeps on going, that you teach
it's
them
completely
how
ongoing,
to
yes.
work with.
Yes. The danger is that once they've got what they want from us, they can't wait to get rid of us, really. So they don't have to pay any more fees, and we go off and do another job somewhere. And then you go back after 6 months and they've all forgotten what you were talking about. So the real challenge is keeping the plant flourishing and keeping it alive and looking after it. I'm just looking at those poor irises. They need some water.
Yeah, we need to. We're going to sort that. The first thing after the talk.
Yeah.
So we're almost done. We're talking about minutes left. That's how fast this hour went by.
It's whizzed.
But I really want to open this space because there might be someone here who's like, I really need to ask. And I also want to say, we will move very slowly out of this space afterwards. If you're like, I really want to ask, but I really don't want to ask in this space, and that's fine too. But if you have a question, now is the time, and you can just stand up and say it, and I will repeat it since we don't have a microphone for you. So just, if you're sort of,
It's always hard to ask the first question.
I know, it's horrible, but it's also rude not
Somebody's
to give the
standing up here.
opportunity.
So I would like to ask these two ladies. They are very familiar with museums. I'm mostly a visitor. I have no influence on the program or the project is done. What can I do to have more influence as a visitor?
Great question. So thank you. Allow me to repeat and correct me if I do it wrongly. So the question was, as a visitor to the museum, what can I do to gain more influence in what is actually chosen to be presented and how it's presented? Correct? And it was directed to Lynn and Jane mainly, so...
You've got first-hand experience of being inside a museum.
Yeah, but I'm learning. But I think to interact with the people at the museum is one thing. There is always, we talk a lot about hosting as a super important task to develop. And I think that how to, talk to people, like when you're walking the dog, it's very easy to just grab someone else who walks the dog and talk about everything in the world, but we don't do that in museums really. And so I think to start talk to people, and I think that is the responsibility for the museum as well, to interact, and that's kind of a physical thing. But we, like your task in the digital world, I think there is a lot of, or we work a lot with interacting in all those medias and social channels and everything. But to me, right now, I'm in a very small scale of being present in the museums and be with the art and talk to the people or involve the people in the class. Yeah, I just wanted to say something about hosting.
Yeah,
because like
say
here,
that, and then I also have an add-on question.
like when you come here, I think this is a brilliant example of good hosting. I think Frida, Martin, Pernilla and Lisa. No, I just really, because you came to Malmö Art Museum to have a workshop, and we were all blown away. All of a sudden the museum was alive and vivid, and everybody talked to everyone and grabbing each other. And I mean, the hosts in the museum that are always there and are wonderful people, and they're full of knowledge, but they're never really in a dialogue with that many people if they're not giving. So I think to interact,
so
and I think how you do,
can sort of ask for that. Is that what you're thinking?
or just interact,
Yeah.
like you do here. You ask, you come. Do you want to? La la la. I think that is
Put the question in the
one
room.
task.
I want to give the space for one more question, if there is one. Yes, I knew it.
I am actually curious about how you think about that in a digital space, because one thing in a physical one, where it becomes very one-to-one, but it is equally important in the digital one, right? So how do you kind of bring the audience in
Yeah.
to influence how the channel is developed?
Yes. So the question was, how do you bring in an audience? How do you interact with an audience in a digital space, related to what you describe in the physical space? Yes. Now you go.
Thank you for asking, because I think those questions are really interesting. I would, actually love to challenge you on your question whether or not you want this influence. Because from my own point of view, my greatest cultural experiences are when I see something that I didn't expect, ego didn't have an influence on. But that will be a long discussion.
You will meet in the bar.
And,
I have a question to you too.
we of course, we have the saying at the museum, and this also on the Louisiana Channel, we always say we want to be popular without being populist. So of course we recognize what sort of content is popular and people are interested in, and I can tell you this changes all the time. Some years ago our architectural videos, they were kind of the most seen. Today this is not the case anymore. It's if you want to be sure to make a video that is watched widely, take a painter, female painter under 30 in her studio showing her process. Then that's, then you can be sure this will make great content somehow. Or people,
They will interact or
so
comment.
in that sense we're very kind of conscious of what we do and what is popular. And you're right in saying that right now our communication is a little bit one-sided because we publish and there's a lot of comments on our videos, but we don't engage in communication because we simply don't have the resources. If you want to do proper communication, that costs a lot of energy and time and men and female power, and we simply don't have those resources. So it's a bit one-way communication without actually the intention of wanting to be a one-way communication. So we register what is popular, we register what kind of content people like to see, but we're stubborn enough to also sometimes say, okay, so we believe in that content, and even though it doesn't get a number or kind of endless views, we still publish it because we think it's important.
Yeah.
And that kind of connects to your question, because I actually believe that as a culture, I know every museum in the world is working with democratic participation and asking the audience and stuff like this. But I would also say, and that combines to what we've talked on before, as an institution, I think if you can build up trust to your audience, that they believe in what you're curating, and you have a trust to that, and you come anyway, even though you don't know the name of an artist. This is because, then
Stop.
Stop.
So, say
Yes.
the last words.
But say the last words. Yes. Well, if you can build up this trust as an institution, I think this is what you should aim at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect final words, because it has to be the final words.
Yes. Yes.
And this audience has been so attentive. They
Very.
have not.
They need a beer now.
They
Yes.
have not been on their phones or left the building or anything like that. And also that audience.
We have been in an analog space.
We have. Has this been useful for you guys? Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then please give yourself and these wonderful guests an applaud.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And before you leave, talk to a stranger, because you have a couple of strangers here, and hang out a little bit, and then at 6 o'clock we need to get out of here. But you have time to change phone numbers
Yes.
for that. So, see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Pernilla.
you.